Welcome back to the CBJ show for episode 35. Jason, we're here with Brandon, and this week we have a lot of things to talk about, mainly the NFL playoff picture. It's the first week 18 ever in NFL history, and there's a lot of different scenarios that we will be going over as the regular season actually is nowhere near over because so much could change. We could even have an intentional tie on game 252, which is incredible. There is so much to talk about, and I think right now we're just going to dive right into it. And as we first are going to take a look at the AFC, there are still four teams that are in contention for the number one seed in the final week of NFL action, and one of them is still in the wild card. We still have the Tennessee Titans at 11-5 with the one seed. They have a tiebreaker over the two seed Kansas City Chiefs because they actually beat them in a head-to-head game. The Cincinnati Bengals, who have already clinched their division as well, like with the Titans and the Chiefs, have a tiebreaker over the Buffalo Bills, who are the 4 seed because of win percentage in conference games. And the 4 seed Buffalo Bills wins the tiebreak over the New England Patriots based on their own best win percentage in division games. And the Patriots at the 5 seed, like I said, they are in the wild card and they still have a chance to get that number one spot. And we're going to dive into scenarios in a little bit. And then just outside the top 5, we have the Indianapolis Colts, 1 game behind the Patriots. They have a tiebreaker over the Chargers, the 7 seed on win percentage and conference record. They're both 9-7, and the Raiders at 9-7. The Chargers have the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Raiders right now. But like I said, they play on Sunday night in the final game of the season. And the 9 seed with the Steelers, who are, I believe, 8-7-1, and the Baltimore Ravens at 8-8. And they're the 11th seed, not even the 10th seed, and they still actually have a chance to get in. We look at the scenarios for each team. Brandon, who do you think is going to have the number one seed in the AFC?
Yeah, just quickly before we get into scenarios, since it's very complicated, it's crazy to me going, first off, having this week 18 is amazing, an extra week of red zone, which is amazing, but I was surprised. I thought going into the season, the last week, so many teams normally have their starters rest, but with so many games still in contention, so many teams can go from wild card to the division, in the hunt to wild card teams to in the hunt. This is when this is so exciting, and we, like Jason mentioned, we even have a situation where two teams can make it via a tie, and I think that is incredible. Just let alone having someone tie two divisional rivals tying for game 272 would just, I think, be a little crazy for how crazy this season has been. We've had games on Thursday, we've had games on Saturday, we've had games on Sunday, we've had games on Monday and Tuesday, and end the season with a tie. I think it would just wouldn't be surprised with all how craziness we've had this year. Like Jason mentioned, the Dolphins actually have the 10 seed. They were eliminated from teams that they played. Baltimore at the 11th seed still has a chance to make the wild card, or the playoffs, I should say. As we know, 7 teams make the wild card from each, or 7 teams make the playoffs from each conference. Only the 1 seed gets the bye. Going to scenarios. So first, we're going to start with the teams that are in the hunt and wild card teams. Indianapolis. So all they really need to do is win in their end. That seems simple, right? Well, it would be if they weren't playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. So a lot of people think Jags, they suck. But the Jags have won the past 5 matchups against the Colts in Jacksonville. So this game on paper isn't as easy as you think. If Indy doesn't win or tie, they could still get in with a tie. They could get in with a Chargers loss, in a Baltimore-Pittsburgh tie, or a Chargers loss combined with a Pittsburgh loss combined with a Miami win. These are very complicated. We're going to go into so much depth. Easiest way to look in it is if you're rooting for your team, a lot of these teams need a win and they're in. A lot of it also means they need help from other teams. And if you want to learn more info or refresh your memory, all the Twitter accounts, social media, which we'll post as well, have all these scenarios really simple. The Chargers, all they need to do is win or tie in their end. No other scenario needed. Jason, you want to talk about Vegas?
Yeah, Vegas, they have actually 3 scenarios, just like the Colts. And with Vegas, they're actually outside the playoff picture, so it's going to be a bit more difficult than a win and you're in scenario. For Vegas, if they win, they are in, but it's not that, like, it's not really it's actually a lot more complicated because they play in that last game of the season. And so if Jacksonville somehow beats Indy, just like the Chargers, they're not playing for anything except for the 6th or the 7th seed. Because like we said, while the Jacksonville win would be a bit unlikely, like you said, they've always beaten the Colts at home for as long as like a lot of us can remember, for like a very long time. And a second scenario is if they tie, which we said could be possible. And also a Colts loss would really help them out because they tie and Indy loses, they are automatically in. And an Indy loss and a Pittsburgh loss are tied because Pittsburgh is also still in the hunt. That would also really help them. So for teams like the Colts, Chargers, and Raiders, it's a win and they're in. But for teams like the Steelers and the Ravens, there's only one way they can get in, and they need so much to happen. Looking at Pittsburgh, they need to win versus Baltimore, and they are on the road, and they also need a Colts loss, and they also need to make sure that this Vegas Chargers game does not end in a tie. And as you said, the intentional tie is something that could possibly happen. And let's say Pittsburgh beats the Ravens, and let's say the Colts lose to the Jaguars, but the Chargers and the Raiders decide to kind of like come to a tie. I'm sure Steelers fans would go absolutely crazy on social media and be so mad that this game ended in a tie, because because all they need is just one team to win and one team to lose, because they would take the place over the team that loses. And if they end in a tie, I feel really bad for Steelers fans. That would be a really bad ending.
Definitely would not be fun for Steelers fans. On the Baltimore side of things, it's a little complicated. They need a Baltimore win combined with a Chargers loss, an Indy loss, or a Miami loss or tie. A lot of things need to go their way. They won't know if they're in until the late window, as Miami Patriots game. Miami New England game is at 4:25 compared to a lot of these other games. Chargers, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and the Indy game is all at 1. So as an NFL fan, if you're rooting for your team, you not only have to look at the Sunday games at 1, 4, and 8, you also have to look with Saturday, as we'll move into the teams that can clinch the number 1 seed. But Baltimore needs a lot of things to happen. Same with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And even if either one of those teams win, which means that game doesn't end in a tie, they still need other teams to go their way to make their destiny. So it's not out for them. They're not eliminated, but it's very far. The number 1 seed clinching scenarios. Tennessee has the easiest. All they need to do, win at Houston, and you're in. Want to remind everyone, this season, without Derrick Henry, without Julio Jones, without A.J. Brown, they lost to the Texans. This week, A.J. Brown is back, Julio Jones is back, and Derrick Henry has been back from IR. Doesn't mean Henry will play, but all 3 are on the active roster. None of these players played last time, so hopefully that's better for Titans fans. Have more faith. But all they need to do is win. They lock up the number 1 seed. Done deal. If they don't, they can tie and still get the number 1 seed. That would only work if Kansas City loses or ties. That way, Tennessee could tie. So Tennessee is going to look at tomorrow's game, Saturday, Chiefs Broncos, and that's going to impact Kansas City game is going to impact Tennessee and the Patriots for the number 1 seed. The other scenarios include a Kansas City loss, a Cincy loss, a New England loss, or a Buffalo win. One of those would knock the Patriots. A New England loss or a Buffalo win would knock the Patriots out. But the easiest is Tennessee wins, they're in.
Yeah, it seems pretty simple for Tennessee, but like you said, Houston give them a bit of trouble. We saw them upset the Chargers just a few weeks ago in a really surprising fashion. Davis Mills has looked really good the last few weeks, and I think he's showing a lot of promise to be their quarterback for at least next year. Not their franchise quarterback at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans want to kind of rest their stars, and because they'd rather, even though if they sacrifice the 1 seed, they'd still get home field advantage in the wild card round no matter what. I mean, of course you want that 1 seed, but I wouldn't be surprised if Davis Mills turns it up. I'm not saying he will. I think Tennessee's got the win pretty much locked up, but it's never over because anything can really happen. And as we look at the Kansas City Chiefs, who are tied with the Titans record-wise, however, the Titans beat the Chiefs earlier this season, so that's why the Titans have the 1 seed. Like we said, the head-to-head is the tiebreaker. Kansas City can also get the 1 seed. With a win, they also need a Tennessee loss or a tie. But if Kansas City ties to Denver on Saturday, they can actually still get in if the Texans beat the Titans. So there's two ways to get in. It's kind of complicated. They really need they're kind of really wishing on the downfall of the Titans to get that 1 seed. But I mean, so much for the Chiefs to have home field advantage throughout the AFC playoff picture. And then
I'll
Cincinnati at the
just add one more thing as we keep on talking about this, and we're going to reiterate this just because it's really important. Only one team is getting this bye, and it's really crucial. We've seen in the NFL a lot of times, not all the times, but a lot of times that number 1 seed or the teams with the bye, they really get an advantage of having an extra week of rest for their players. So that's why we're talking about this being so important, and ties versus a loss versus a win is really important. Now you can go back to continuing.
Yes, so the Cincinnati Bengals, believe it or not, they actually have a chance. Everyone was doubting them earlier in the year, saying they go like 4-13 or something like that. Well, they're here. They've got their division. Joe Shiesty's here, looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and they have a chance of getting the 1 seed with two different scenarios. First,
Wait, did you say who? Who'd you say?
Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow. Yeah, so Cincy, they need to win. They also need the Titans to lose to the Texans. They need the Chiefs to lose to the Broncos, and they need the Patriots to lose or tie with the Miami Dolphins. Because if Cincy wins, Kansas City loses, and Tennessee loses, we know they have the head-to-head over Kansas City, and they also, I believe, have an advantage over Tennessee. I'm not sure what it is, but if they have the tiebreaker, Cincy would get the advantage. And the Patriots would have the advantage over the Bengals if they were to win, and the Bengals were to lose. So they need a Patriots loss or tie immediately. And also, if Cincy wins, Tennessee loses, Kansas City loses, there's another way they can somehow get the 1 seed, and it doesn't involve the Patriots, no matter what happens with the Patriots. If Buffalo beats the New York Jets, they also get the number 1, or Buffalo, I believe, loses. I'm not really sure how Buffalo really plays into this, but I believe if they're able to, if Buffalo loses, they will be able to get the 1 seed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah.
No, a Buffalo win would cancel out the Patriots game. So
Buffalo
no
win would
matter if the
cancel out the
Patriots win against Miami, a Buffalo win just cancels that Patriots game out. And if the other 3 games go the way Jason just mentioned, Cincinnati gets the 1 seed.
Yes, because like you said, with the Patriots, if they win and Buffalo loses, the Patriots have a better record than the Bills. So a Bills win would automatically give them the edge over the Patriots, no matter what happens in the Patriots game. So the Bengals can still get the 1 seed that way. And as for the 5-seeded Patriots, there's a way, there's one scenario. Of course, the Patriots win over Miami, a Bills loss or tie, because if the Patriots win and the Buffalo Bills do not win, that means that the Patriots are ahead of them, and they would also win the AFC East. And they also need the Chiefs to lose to the Broncos and the Titans to lose to the Texans. It seems complicated, but we could see Bill Belichick and the Patriots resting it up until the weekend of January 23rd or around that time, and that would be pretty insane to see in his in one of the quickest rebuilds we've seen in like NFL history, to be honest, because the dynasty could still be going. You never know.
Yeah, any team, whichever team gets the 1 seed will definitely have an advantage, and avoiding super wild card weekend will be important. Jason just mentioned the Patriots can get the 1 seed, but if that is too far for the Patriots, the division is in reach. Buffalo has the tiebreaker, as Jason mentioned, over conference record. Back in week 1, the Patriots lost to the Dolphins. The Bills have swept the Dolphins and Jets, swept the Dolphins and they beat the Jets the first time. As a result, they would have a better record than the Patriots if both teams win. All Buffalo needs to do to clinch the East is win. If they don't, they need a New England loss to clinch. If for some reason both games end in a tie, Buffalo would get the advantage. So New England needs a win and a Buffalo loss. But New England can also win the division with a tie and a Buffalo loss. So as long as Buffalo loses and the Patriots win, the division goes to the Patriots. If Buffalo wins, Patriots game doesn't even matter, and the Bills are the division champs.
Yeah, it's coming down to the wire. While it seems like the Bills have pretty much this game locked up, they're playing the New York Jets, who have shown some promise lately because of how they were able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the first 3 quarters of the game. They really owned the game for then, and then Tom Brady just came back with a great comeback, which is very impressive.
I would
And
also say I think the New York Jets beat Antonio Brown last week as they were able to get him upset. I call that a win for the New York Jets.
yes, the Jets took a big W last week, even though it won't be in the win column. But yes, the Bills Jets game could be a lot closer than people think because I think Zach Wilson's coming together at the right time. He had a really rough start, but I feel like the last few weeks Zach Wilson has looked even better than Trevor Lawrence this year. If I'm being completely honest, I think Zach Wilson's the answer in New York right now, and you never know if they could beat down the Bills team. That the Bills have some guys coming out from injury, I believe, this week. And who knows, the Jets could carry their momentum because they played a very good game of football versus Tampa. And I think it's possible that they pull off an upset and then propel Patriots to get home field advantage in the wild card. Now we are moving on to the NFC. There is a little bit less playoff implications here, but it's still really interesting to look at because there are 5 teams that have over 11 wins in the NFC right now. We have a clinched number 1 seed with the Green Bay Packers at a 13-3 record. They will be starting Aaron Rodgers for Week 18 versus Detroit. So it's interesting how Jordan Love won't get the start, but who knows? Maybe Jordan Love will get some playing time, maybe in the second half. The Rams have the 2 seed right now at 12-4. They have a tiebreaker over the 12-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of a head-to-head win. They beat them earlier in the season in week 3. So that's why the Rams have the 2 seed and the Buccaneers, like I said, at the 3 seed. And the Dallas Cowboys also have their division on locks, just like the 3 teams above. They are 11-5, and they can't really move that far up, but they'll probably be locked in at a 4 seed with home field advantage.
They actually are not. If sorry to interrupt, but if Tampa Bay and the Rams lose, and Dallas wins, Dallas could actually move up to the 3 seed. So as much as it doesn't seem like much, and a lot would have to go their way, Dallas can actually move from the 4 to the 3. And we know having that 3-6 matchup versus the 4-5 matchup is definitely better for teams.
Yeah, and I think it would be interesting if the Cowboys end up playing a divisional rival like the Eagles, who have already clinched. As we move down, we see the Eagles at the 7 seed, but they've already clinched. And going up, we have the Cardinals at 11-5, the 49ers at 9-7 at the 6 seed, but they actually have not clinched because the Saints can actually get in over them. We'll get into the scenario in just a moment. Like I said, the Eagles Cowboys, that could be a fantastic rivalry that's been won for years and years. And if we see that in wild card action, I think that would draw a lot of attention to the media, and it'd be a really fun game to watch.
If I'm not mistaken, I think those 2 teams are playing this weekend.
They are, yeah. So they could play back to back, just like the Browns and the Steelers did last year. And who knows, maybe if one team carries the momentum with the upset, let's say the Eagles might win this week and the Eagles win the wild card game, that would be crazy. As we saw the Steelers dominate the NFL in the regular season for over half the first part of the regular season and a little bit into it as they went 11-0 to start the year off. They kind of fell apart. The Browns took advantage of them. And they ended up moving on to the divisional round, almost taking down the Kansas City Chiefs. And who knows, the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, a young up and coming quarterback, like the Browns with a young up and coming roster, at least with guys like Myles Garrett. We can see the Eagles take down the Cowboys and maybe show why they're a team for the future.
So as a fan who likes both of these teams, the Niners and the Saints, having a really hard time trying to figure out which team I really want in. And I think what I've came to the conclusion is the Saints are in a rebuilding mode. First year after Drew Brees, but had a lot of COVID absences, and an injury to their number one starting QB this at the beginning of the season, Jameis Winston. So I think the Niners have the edge, but I would not call it wouldn't be certain that the Niners make it, especially with this very, very tough divisional game against the Rams in LA. For the Niners to make the playoffs and clinch, since they have not, they need to, easiest way is just to win or tie, or a New Orleans loss or tie. So if the Niners lose and the Saints lose, the Niners are in. Niners wouldn't want that, because if the Niners lose, the Saints win, and the Saints, the Niners lose and the Saints win, the Niners don't make the playoffs and the Saints win. So that Niners game, really big and really important. And basically all they need to do is win and they're in, but who knows if Jimmy G will play.
Yeah, the Jimmy G injury has been a big topic in the NFL lately. We saw Trey Lance have a really nice start last week. And I think Lance might be the starter next year, but I think they need Jimmy G at least for this week if they want to get in, because playing the LA Rams, who are still fighting for keeping their 2 seed, I assume they're playing their starters. It's still a really tough matchup for San Fran. And with the Saints, they don't really have a tough matchup, in my opinion, with the Atlanta Falcons. Because the Falcons aren't really playing for anything, so they might just put in some backups and the young guys. So if that's the case, the Saints could honestly sneak in over the 49ers, even though I think the 49ers have the better team constructed right now. With the Saints, they've gone through a lot this year with losing Jameis and finding out Michael Thomas wouldn't play a single snap for them this year. And the fact that they're still in the playoffs with switching quarterbacks almost every single week. They've had 4 different quarterbacks play this year. And even Blake Bortles just got signed to the team. So they kind of have 5 quarterbacks on their roster right now. And the fact that they have they have the odds on their side at the moment to make the playoffs is honestly incredible for NFL fans to see. And I know they won't go far in the playoffs, but it's still a really nice story to think about.
Both matchups, the Niners game and the Saints game, is being played at 4:25. So no matter what happens, they'll know at the exact same time, and it won't. One game at 1 won't impact at 4. So I like how the NFL does this. They don't allow teams to rest guys because of other games. But if the Niners win and Saints win, the Niners obviously make the playoffs. In the NFC West, there's not only scenarios for the Niners, there's also scenarios for the division. This is the only division up for grabs in the NFC. And it's between the Rams and the Cardinals. So right now the Rams are the 2 seed, actually, since they have the tiebreaker of Tampa. They have that right now. They'd be the division leader. They just need to win, and they keep the crown, and they can keep that 2 seed. If they lose to the Niners and Arizona wins, then Arizona leapfrogs LA into the the top 4 seeds, and the Rams would be a wild card team. So basically, these games determine which team is playing a home game next week and which team is playing an away game next week.
Yeah, I think it'd also be interesting. I know the odds aren't really there, but like I said, if you have like another divisional matchup in the wild card, with a Rams versus Cardinals, like let's say they line up as like the 4-5 or the 3-6 somehow. Actually, no, they can't line up as 3-6, but 4-5 is a little bit more probable, because the Cardinals, if they win their division, I don't believe the odds are on their side, because of some other matchups like that would get them any higher than the 4 seed. And the Rams would obviously be the best wild card team because whoever does not win the division of those two teams will still have the 5 seed. And I think if we have a Cardinals-Rams matchup again with a 4 to 5 seed game, that would also be really interesting. We could see one team overtake the other. Yeah, so like we said, there's not much to it. The Rams have everything set up for them to win. They play the 49ers. The Rams win, like you said, they're in, and Arizona lost also gets them in. But Arizona needs to win, and the Rams need to lose in 2 divisional matchups in Week 18.
A lot of games, week 18, that will factor in who's in and who's out. Since we're talking about the teams that are doing well, we also have to talk about the teams that didn't do well. The NFL draft order, yeah, it's that time of year as well when your team is dreading the last couple of games and just ready for the offseason. I'll just quickly go through this. And Jacksonville holds the number 1 seed, or the number 1 pick. Detroit is 2. Houston is 3. The Jets are 4. The New York Giants are 5. Carolina Panthers are 6. The Jets from Seattle are 7. The Giants from Chicago are 8th. Washington is 9. And Atlanta is 10. So just quickly going through that, and depending on if some of these teams want to upset, it helps other teams that are fighting for the playoffs. It also hurts the teams itself because they could lose the draft order. Not saying that 2 versus the 3 is really gonna change anything. Haven't looked into it much. I don't know if you have, Jason, but definitely think that the draft order right now is just a little interesting to know because it may not be this after Week 18 with all the upsets we may have.
Yeah, the upsets could really change a lot. Like if Jacksonville beats the Colts and continues their streak, and the Lions end up losing. Actually, no, yeah, the Lions actually could end up with number 1 overall pick. And as Jacksonville has done horribly this entire year, and they honestly might just want to tank this game, and they somehow end up winning, I think that would be a really bad thing for the Jaguars, because I think they're really looking at someone like Aiden Hutchinson to be one of their franchise edge rushers. And then you have the Texans, Jets, and Giants with a tie at 4 and 12 each. If one team kind of drops, one team rises. I think the Giants are probably hoping that they fall to a top 5 pick. Hold on one second. I need to check out where the Giants are. They are at number 5, but if they somehow have a few other scenarios go their way, they could end up with the top 3 pick. And with the season that they've had, just horrible team management, some injuries, and a really bad roster, I think they would really like a top 3 pick if they could get it. And we see the Jets and the Giants both have 2 top 10 picks right now, and that would be really interesting to see if they both take some franchise guys that will really help them down the line. And we know that the Eagles also have 3 first-round picks this draft, I believe. And they're also making the playoffs, which is also really interesting.
All right, that will do it for the bulk of the episode. We're now gonna jump into headlines. So MLS news, we try to talk about MLS as much as we talk about the other 4 sports, the big 4. Few MLS guys have moved to Europe over the past week or so. Most notable, Orlando City striker Daryl Dike is joining West Bromwich Albion. I think I'm saying that correctly. U.S. men's national team star and FC Dallas player Ricardo Pepi. Everyone knows El Tren, or the Pepi train. He's joining Bundesliga side FC Augsburg. I also know the Revs Tajon Buchanan. He signed the contract over the summer to play with Club Brugge in Belgium. He officially has had his first training session in Belgium. New MLS Cup champion James Sand, defender for the U.S. men's national team, has also made his way to Europe. So it's definitely interesting. Over the past couple of years, we've seen many young stars get drafted, and a few years later, they're off to Europe. Just quick reminder, MLS season starts February 26th, the earliest it's ever started in MLS's 27-year history. And CCL will begin for the Revs, NYCFC, Colorado, and Seattle, and Canadian Club Montreal on February 15th. Dates, times, and locations are coming out very shortly. NBA, we heard, not just heard, we saw last night as Kyrie Irving made his 2022 or 21-22 season debut with the New York Nets last night. And NFL, we mentioned with the whole AB situation, he's now officially cut from the Bucks. And if you were listening to our holiday hot takes on social media, I don't know if you're listening, checked it out on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. Cam's take one of the days was college football championship matchup between Georgia and Alabama, and he got that spot on. So congrats, Cam. Although he can't be here, he's definitely cheering inside himself. Unfortunately, we've had some famous people die, including former NFL player and head coach Dan Reeves, and the very notable figure and icon John Madden passed away just before New Year's last week, which was a little sad. All the teams did a great tribute this past weekend for John Madden, and as a lot of you probably know or play the game Madden, he was definitely a huge spark and definitely got people, young players, into the game of football. So with that, we hope you enjoyed this very, very special dedicated football NFL episode. You know where you can find us on social media at CBJ Sports. Jason, do you have anything else to add?
Not much. I think it's gonna be a really nice NFL weekend. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Red Zone will be really enjoyable to watch. As Scott Hansen says, 7 more hours of commercial-free football with lots of playoff implications left. With that, we're going to sign off, and we hope you enjoyed episode 35 of the CBJ Show.